Back home, there would be car crashes like immediately if people tried to do that.
Picturesque beaches, welcoming locals, bullfights, and a bustling nightlife are some of the things that people imagine when they hear Spain. But just like every other country, they have peculiar laws that would send any American screaming. From banned names to banned clothing items and prohibitions placed on tourists, here are some of the strangest laws straight out of Spain. 14. No topless strolls in the city. Let's be honest. When many of you say you watch Spanish telenovelas for the plot, we know it is really because of the shirtless men, and yes, women too. But it would interest you to know you won't see as many topless people in Spain as you do on TV. In fact, you may never even see a shirtless person unless you are on the beach. And it keeps getting worse because some beaches have banned toplessness and the use of bikinis totally. Yes, girls have been banned from being topless in Spain as they could be hit with a heavy fine for flashing their bikinis. But what exactly could be the reason for taking such drastic measures? Spain is a tropical country, so it sometimes gets hot enough to want to lay naked on the street. But the government didn't care about the temperature before banning topless people on the streets. It wasn't always like this, though. There was a time people were allowed to wear their swimsuits and expose their torsos while traveling or walking on the street. But the governments of different municipalities got tired of seeing this sight and banned it. So now, citizens and tourists are only allowed to wear their swimwear within beaches and along coastal resorts. They definitely set a precedent for other parents to follow. And if you think this law is strange, which it is, wait until you find out their law on modesty for a state that is secular. If you ever travel to Spain, make sure you wear your shirt before hitting the street, or you may pay a fine of $300 to $750. But if you are a risk taker, you can do it and come back to tell us how it went. If you think this restriction is strange, wait until you hear about the next one that has to do with what the government wants you to call your child. 13. Forbidden names. At the bottom, we have forbidden names. If you have plans to give birth to your child in Spain because you have been romanticizing it since you watched your favorite rom-com, you might want to think again. Especially if you are the kind who subscribes to the idea of not-so-palatable names like Gaylord.
Besides, you said I could have Rupert. I thought you liked Oscar better anyway.
Well, I just changed my mind. And you know Rupert's a dude, right, you Gaylord?
Actually, Gaylord is not on the list of banned names in Spain. But the names that are banned in this tropical country are ones that can harm the owner, cause misidentification and confusion. So, maybe the name Gaylord should be added to the list. Okay, too much? All right. While Spain doesn't have a direct list of names that parents can't give to their children, the country specifically banned the use of celebrities' names. You also can't name your child anything that has a negative historic connotation. Some examples are Lucifer, Judas, Osama bin Laden, and of course, Hitler and Stalin. But the laws seem to be changing from time to time, as many girls in Spain are being named after the Latin singer Shakira. Despite this law being in place to guide parents on name-giving, 2 Spanish parents fought to name their child Wolf. The name was rejected because it is an animal's name and it could cause the child harm. But after garnering the support of thousands of people, they won the battle and named their son Wolf. They definitely set a precedent for other parents to follow. And if you think this law is strange, which it is, wait until you find out their law on modesty for a state that is secular. What's funny is that this isn't even the weirdest beach-related law. Any American who loves to go to the beach may not survive this next law. 12. You can't reserve space on the beach. Every summer, beaches in Spain become an eyesore. And it's not because of the large crowds. It is because of the seemingly infinite amount of umbrellas that beachgoers use to reserve their spots, which is rather weird considering that a beach should be a free space to use. This period has been tagged the Umbrella Wars, and if you ask me, it is a befitting name. Because of the large number of people flocking into the beaches during the summer, tourists mount umbrellas or spread their towels in strategic spots so they can come back whenever they like. But what is disappointing about this, aside the fact that people are keeping space on the beach, is that many of the umbrella owners don't come back. So, in order to stop this occurrence, Spanish municipality authorities have placed a ban on reserving a spot in beaches. It is now going to be first come, first serve. If you are caught reserving a beach spot, you will pay a fine of up to 3,000 euros. Also, pray the vigilant police don't confiscate your belongings while you're trying to break the rule, or else you'll pay a fine of 50 euros to get your property back. The law seems too harsh. Well, imagine how many people have disappointedly ended their trip because they could not enjoy a simple beach day. Maybe this rule also needs to be adopted in colleges so people can stop reserving a space for their friends who come late to class. Just saying. To keep the tourists coming, Spain has to make their hotspots as convenient as possible. But they have moved beyond just making the beaches available to also making the country itself aesthetically pleasing by prohibiting how people can display things outside their house. 11. Do not air dry your mop. Oh wait, you thought the name of the law was code for something else? No. To make Spain keep appearing aesthetically pleasing in the eyes of tourists, the government has gone the extra mile to ban the display of mops outside. Aside from maintaining the aesthetics of the city, the government is also trying to prevent unpleasant smells. As we all know, many mops can actually be disgusting to look at, especially when you think of what it may have been used to clean. But air drying it is actually the best way to get rid of smells and bacteria. However, the Spanish government doesn't think so. This law doesn't only apply to mops. Residents have also been banned from air drying laundry and dusting their rug on the street. While this may make Spain seem more hygienic, it could actually be counterproductive in terms of preventing smells. Imagine how murky people would smell because their clothes are not drying properly. Well, that is the responsibility of the Spanish people to bear. But the strange laws haven't stopped. As an American planning to tour Spain, you may not like this next law that prohibits camping. 10. You cannot sleep in a car while camping. It is the dream of many American families to live in a car or RV and just travel round the world. However, Spain doesn't care what your fantasy is when it comes to traveling. In fact, they have put measures in place to ensure people don't sleep in their cars while camping or struggling with accommodation. The law doesn't necessarily forbid the use of RVs or motorhomes. It just has certain rules that must be adhered to so you don't end up with a fine. For one, make sure you are parked in a designated spot, as parking in any random place would attract a fine or confiscation of your vehicles. Do you see how your favorite campers go into the woods and cut down trees to make fires in the US? Yeah, you can't do that, as starting a campfire can attract a fine. You must be parked 100 meters away from any water source and keep your trash close to you. With all these measures in place, how then are campers going to sleep? Truth be told, you can actually sleep in your car, but there must be nothing hanging outside like a chair, table, or awning. The only thing you can do is open your window or raise your roof. It is actually an easy law to follow, except you just want to see what the Spanish government can do if you disobey them. We won't advise you to do that, but aren't we all here for the plot? For people with accommodation issues who think they can live in their cars until they get back on their feet, you would be fined. So if you can, find the nearest homeless shelter and lay your head. Because even if you may succeed in sleeping in your car, you can only stay in one location for the maximum of one night. You have to keep noise to a minimum if you are with a group, but camping is not the only place you are instructed to be quiet in Spain. 9. Do not sing on the street. Singing is a talent that many people are blessed with, but the Spanish government doesn't want to hear your voice. So in order to make sure that people are not discovering their inner Celine Dion on the streets, they have placed a ban on singing on the street. The aim is to keep their cities as quiet as possible, especially during festivities when they may have tourists. But this law doesn't just apply to singing, as a ban has also been placed on playing loud music from cars or speakers while using the road. So if your specialty is walking around with music blasting loudly from your speaker, you just may get stopped by the police. If you are using a car to play loud music, it can be seized. Yes, the Spanish police have the right to seize your car when you make noise that disturbs the peace of its residents. In some cities, you may need to do an exam if singing in public is such an important activity to you. With your singing license, you will be able to busk on the street, but only in designated areas. It is an odd law when you first hear about it, but the more you pay attention, the more you realize that many cities across the world need to implement it too. And although most of these laws seem strange, you sometimes have to wonder who encouraged them, just like the next law. 8. No shirtless driving. We know the internet chads are not going to like this, but the Spanish government doesn't care what you like or not. So if you are planning to go to Spain and you are thinking of attracting the ladies with your bare chest in your ride, just forget it. It's not because it's not going to work, but because you may pay a fine. The law is not actually under the country's traffic laws, but it is a practice that has been discouraged countless times. While there is no exact reason for this prohibition, the Spanish government has cited seatbelt injuries as a concern. Violating this law can incur a fine of 80 to 200 euros, and that seems more expensive than the price of a basic shirt. Add the cost of the embarrassment of being pulled over by the police shirtless. In relation to this law, you can be fined for wearing flip-flops while driving. While it is not also an official traffic law, it is important to remember that you can be penalized for driving with flip-flops. The reason for this ban is because you are expected to have control of your vehicle at all times, but flip-flops can easily slip off, making it harder for you to control your vehicle in case of an emergency. So throw a shirt on before you cruise in Spain, or else you will be a lesson for other visitors. Now let's get to our ultimate pick. Did you know that it is illegal for women in Spain to wear a bikini under their dresses? Well, the law was put in place because Spain is a tropical country and tends to have high levels of winds. The last thing anybody wants to see is underwear being exposed in the middle of the street. It is a strange law, but not entirely a bad idea. It seems that Spain may be anti-fun because the next law screams, "We don't want you to play." 7. No paddleball on the beach. Beach days are fun days. It's when adults can unwind and kids can run around with reckless abandon. It's also a day when you see adults playing and feel nothing but joy. But on Spanish beaches, you are not allowed to play certain games, especially paddleball. Paddleball is a fun game that people of all ages can get into, and nobody would have a negative thing to say. Well, except for the Spanish government. In Spain, it is illegal to play paddleball on the beach, as it is considered a disturbance to other people. Two things come to mind. It's either Spanish residents hate seeing people happy, or they just don't know how to paddleball. No matter the reason for the law, it has been implemented across all their beaches, so keep that game at home before your Spain trip. But when it comes to Spanish beach etiquettes, the ban on paddleballs isn't where it stops. It is illegal to drink at the beach, as the government also doesn't want drunk people loitering the streets and beaches. So if you are planning a party with alcohol on a Spanish beach, fall back, or you just might pay a fine of 3,000 euros. If you can't play paddleball on the beach, what then can you do? Maybe you can play chess or something else that makes you appear serious. If you ask for my opinion on this law, I'd say the Spanish government is desperate to make the country look aesthetically pleasing at all times, because the next law would blow your mind with its extremities. 6. Landlords cannot turn off utilities for squatters. A squatter is a person who moves into an empty apartment and lives there without paying rent. An effective way for landlords to deal with these pests like humans is to turn off all utilities to make the house as uncomfortable as possible. However, that is not the case when it comes to Spain. If you are a landlord in Spain and squatters find your empty apartment, you might as well just turn over your keys to them. Say goodbye to your days of making rent, because the law protects squatters. You have to leave the light, water, and heater running until they decide to leave, or the police steps in. We know the Spanish government isn't doing this because they are deeply in love with the homeless. If you ask, it seems to be an attempt to keep the country looking appealing. Most people wouldn't want to take a trip to a place riddled with homeless people. So, to keep people off the streets, the government is providing them with access to other people's homes for free. If the homeless are comfortable with access to heat, water, and shelter, the government wouldn't have to spend as much as they need to on solving that issue. The law is an injustice to landlords who may be arrested or pay a fine for trying to chase squatters out. But there is always a solution in this kind of situation, which is to get the police involved. Hey, this is not your sign to become a squatter in Spain. If you are an immigrant in Spain and you can't afford housing, it is okay to go back home as long as you have a home. While this law sparked an outrage on the end of landlords, the next sparked outrage on the side of those suffering economic hardship. 5. Do not dumpster dive. Have you seen those videos of people dumpster diving at popular stores and going home with goods worth hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands? Well, you cannot do that in Spain. Dumpster diving is actually illegal in many countries. But when you think of how many great goods are being thrown out, you start to think, who should really be punished? The Spanish government banned dumpster diving to promote cleanliness on the streets. But the law sparked controversy as people were wondering how the government expected struggling people to feed. Companies throw out goods worth thousands of dollars weekly, especially food products that are not even expired. It wouldn't be so much of a bad idea to allow people to feed wherever they can, especially with the economic recession across the world. At the same time, it is hard to fault the companies that don't want people to dumpster dive. I mean, they spent money purchasing those items. On the other hand, is it not better to donate what is not needed to charity or a shelter that needs it? It's hard to pick a side in this fight. So let this be your takeaway. Do not visit Spain and attempt to dumpster dive, or you will pay a fine of 750 euros. But for a country that cares so much about safety, the next law is quite contradictory. 4. Hitchhiking is illegal. How many times have you gotten stuck in the middle of nowhere and got saved by a random driver? Well, that is almost impossible in Spain. According to their laws, hitchhiking is a crime. So if you are stuck in the middle of nowhere and see a truck or car, do not attempt to thumb them down, as you put you and the driver in trouble. The reason this law was put in place is really not known, but if you ask me, it doesn't seem so bad. Hear me out before you throw hands. With a fine being imposed on drivers who help hitchhikers, it can help them stay more alert while driving. It can also help hitchhikers stay more alert because entering a wrong vehicle can be more costly than walking till you find the nearest gas station. This law, however, is not applicable on national roads. You can hitch a ride on a national road, where it is easier for your movement to be monitored. The ban on hitchhiking is to promote safety, but we can't say the same for the next one. 3. No drinking. Now, we are back to the fun of hating Spain. Alcohol has been banned in party hotspots like Ibiza and Mallorca. But why would the government do this knowing it is a place that many tourists enjoy visiting, especially for their alcohol-filled parties? Just like many of the other laws in the video, it is to keep noise to a minimum and ensure the streets aren't polluted. But the law is only applicable from 9:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. Also, this law is only applicable in shops, as restaurants, bars, and clubs are exempt from the rules. So you can still grab a night drink in Spain. But you need to remember, you can only do that in certain places. But this is not the end of the alcohol ban in Spain. 2. No alcohol cruise. Many of you probably have a wish to go on a boat cruise with lots of alcohol in Ibiza. It's fine, we listen, but we don't judge. However, the Spanish government may judge you for going on an alcohol cruise on the islands in Spain. In some islands, like Mallorca, party ships are not allowed to come within 1 mile to prevent drunk tourists in the area. So you won't be able to pick up or drop off at these islands as the government is cracking down on drunk tourists. They are also complaining that the islands are seeing too many tourists, which is disrupting the peace of the locals. People, if you go to a new place for a vacation, follow the rules. They exist for a reason. Don't be a drunk tourist in Spain, as drinking a small can of beer in unauthorized places can lead to a fine of 3,000 euros. So before you go to Spain and complain that the officials are killing your shine, keep these rules in mind. 1. No smoking on the beach. And finally, the number 1 strangest law in Spain has to be no smoking on the beach. The reason it is strange is because the beach is an open space, which seems like the perfect place to smoke. But not to the Spanish government. On many of its island beaches, you are not allowed to smoke, except there is a sign that says otherwise. The aim of this prohibition is to promote healthy living and reduce littering. So if you are a smoker, you might want to look around before lighting it up. Which of these laws do you think is the strangest? And which would you like to see implemented in your city? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe to this channel to discover more interesting facts you definitely didn't know about.